You get out of the academy and
Uh-huh.
you start working in group one,
Yep.
and basically it's general enforcement.
Yep.
So tell me what kind of cases you're working on.
We had uh one. Steve Skaggs was working a very long-term, very involved cocaine case that was went from San Diego down to South America up to LA. Very complex. Link's brother Rocky was working with Steve Skaggs on that case, but he was more at the tail end of that investigation. So that was a big case going on in our group. Um, we ended up having one of the senior guys I worked with did a wiretap, and it was a big deal back then because we had no facility for a wiretap. We had no apparatus for doing a wiretap. It was an unbelievable thing to do. You know, from renting, literally, he rented a office in a business park down the street, like within two businesses. So we had a base area to work out of to set up the wiretap, and everything was brought in. Nothing like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, what it
But
is now.
but were there cases that you gravitated to that you liked more than others?
Just loved being on the street. Loved being on the street.
So as long as you were on the street, you were
Yes.
happy.
That's all I cared about. And it didn't matter if we were doing surveillance, doing by walks. I remember my first experience. Rocky had the Chevy pickup with a shell on it. And one of the senior guys, Chuck Jones in the group, he had this coke case with this Mexican he had targeted. And the guy was out of the LA area, but Chuck was sucking him down into San Diego to do the case. And I think San Clemente is kind of the county line.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get him across that line, he's good to go for prosecution in San Diego. So Chuck had been working this case for a while, and I'm fresh on the job. And they stick Rocky and I in the back of Rocky's truck with the Kel unit, and we're recording and monitoring the Kel because it's tea time. And this guy shows up, and he's got 10 keys of coke. And I remember Chuck saying, "Make sure you hit the off button on the Kel unit when it's time." Guess what didn't happen? We freaking bail out of the back of the truck, and it's bum rush to this guy,
Yeah.
hook him up, and I'm like, wow, 10 keys of coke. This is like a walk in the park. I'm thinking in my mind right now.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there for all the lead up to it, all the meetings and the calls and
Yeah.
on and on. But it was, I was 110% in at this point, thinking this is just great, right?
So you and I talked about this before we started recording. I different experience that you had than other people I had talked to. It was kind of you get thrown into the deep end. Nobody's really holding your hand and teaching you how to do things.
No.
What do you think that was all about? I mean, you obviously said the older guys were helpful if you asked a question,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't like guiding you around like
No.
field training officer or field training agent.
It was kind of a sink or swim attitude.
Hmm.
You know, if you want to make something out of this, it's on you.
Yeah.
And so, you pick the people that maybe you looked up to and maybe gravitated towards asking them questions or guidance or whatever the case may be. I got thrown this informant, Jorge, um, one of the senior guys in my group had done him, but he was a low ender in his case, and Jorge was in custody at MCC, and finally, after uh, being incarcerated, going through the whole prosecution phase, he had the epiphany and said, "I want to work." And don't ask me how Chuck managed to pull this off, but Chuck got him out of custody, out of federal custody, and told the judge he will report to me directly. So, not a PO. and he said, "Derek, you want to work this guy?" And sure. So I I worked with Jorge for a while. Um, on the scale of informants, he was a good informant. He was easy to work with, um, and he ended up going from basically a defendant informant to a paid informant, and worked out of our office, not only for me, but I would turn him on to other people, and worked for quite a number of years for us.
Wow.